Today we're talking about how to pick the right buffer. One of the most common questions I get is which buffer weight should I select for my XYZ build, rifle, whatever it might be. My name is Dave Tim from Guns and Tactics. Thank you very much for spending a few minutes with me watching this video on how to pick the proper buffer. Before we get into which weight to select, let's talk about what the buffer is. The buffer is this piece right here. This is a rifle buffer and this is a carbine buffer. And we also have a new type of buffer on the market with specific braces or stocks like the ones that we're going to be talking about today from Maxim. They have a shortened buffer system. Buffer and spring actually reside in the receiver extension or buffer tube of your rifle, and it is what provides that return spring of the bolt carrier group. The buffer and spring work together to make sure that the rifle cycles as it should. There's actually 8 steps that the rifle does every time you press the trigger. And we're not going to get into all of that, but it is critical that we have a proper buffer, not only to make sure the rifle cycles, but it also is running as good as it should. So what buffer to pick? Buffers come in different weights. The traditional purpose of adding a heavier buffer was to control the cyclic rate of full automatic. A heavier buffer would slow the cyclic rate, less rounds per minute. A lighter buffer, it would go faster. Now the Maxim buffers come in all sorts of different weights. We have standard, which is our standard carbine weight of 3.3 ounces. We have our H1, H2, and H3. Now where to start? The Maxim CQB pistol braces and stocks come with a standard buffer in the box. I would recommend trying the standard buffer first before you buy additional heavier buffers. A good function check would be to fire, have 1 round loaded in the magazine. We're going to fire, make sure that the gun cycles and that the bolt locks back to the rear on an empty magazine. If you wanted to try an H1, you certainly could do that. And generally an H1 is probably going to be good to go on most guns. Now keep in mind with short barrel rifles or pistols, there is higher pressure, so you may want to look at an H2. If you're going to be shooting suppressed, what the suppressor does is it adds, in essence, barrel length, allowing that gas pressure to build for a longer period of time. And if we wanted to keep that carrier forward or in the locked position for a longer period of time, we would use a heavier buffer. Another aspect we can look at is the ejection pattern of the rifle. If we had kind of that bird's eye view of the rifle where the barrel was at 12 o'clock, if we are anywhere from 12 o'clock to 3 o'clock, we actually have potentially too much gas and a carrier that is cycling a little too fast. It's actually ejecting the round is bouncing off the brass deflector, and then it's going kind of that forward area. We may want to then look at either an adjustable gas block, or you could try a heavier buffer. Ideally, our ejection would put those rounds at about that 3 to 4 o'clock area. If the rounds are ejecting to that 4 o'clock to 6 o'clock position, we could have short stroking, which means that the gun is not cycling to its full potential. The carrier is not moving all the way to the back and then all the way forward, or it's not doing it at a proper speed. So it needs enough energy to also eject that round. That could be the sign of either undergassed gun. We may have to open up a gas port, open up the adjustable gas block, or you could have too heavy of a buffer in your rifle. This may seem like a lot of information, so don't hesitate to seek the assistance of a qualified armorer or gunsmith to assist you in picking the proper buffer weight. Again, it all comes down to energy over mass. How much energy is needed to overcome the mass of the buffer and spring, as well as the carrier weight to cycle the gun reliably. Another resource that a lot of people forget about is the manufacturer of your barrel. Your barrel manufacturer, or the manufacturer of your rifle, if you're having a complete build or a complete gun, knows what size gas port, and generally they know what the recommended buffer and spring combination will be. Now if you start to look at different calibers like 300 Blackout or 6.8 or shooting suppressed, again, you may want to look at a heavier buffer, but don't just by default go right to the heaviest buffer possible. I hope you found this video helpful. Again, I know we threw a lot of information at you in a short period of time, but if you have any questions, don't hesitate to seek the manufacturer of your rifle or pistol, or seek the assistance of a gunsmith or armorer to assist you. Thank you very much for watching, and have a great day.